So welcome to Module 3, Lesson 3. And in this lesson, we are going to talk all about websites. So you know you need a website. I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. In today's day and age, that is an absolute necessity in any type of business. Now that you know you need a website though, there are a lot of questions that come surrounding that. And I've made a list of them right here. What do you want to sell on your website? What do you want people to do when you get to your website? What do you build your website on? Do you need an e-commerce website or a blog type website? What information do you need on your website? Can you build your own website, or how much is it going to cost to pay someone else to build your website? What are the goals of this website? Do I need to know SEO, and do I need to do it myself, or can I hire someone else to do it? Do I need to learn code? I'm not technical. And how do I keep it updated? And how do I keep track of my systems? But what I want us to talk about today is getting the system in place. So let's start back at the beginning of that list of questions. One of the first things that you need to decide is, what do you want people to do when they get to your website? So if you're a brick and mortar store, do you want them to visit your store? And if that's what you want them to do, you need to clearly position your hours of operation, your address, directions on how to find you, a phone number to call if people have questions. Those are the things that need to be on your website if the ultimate goal is to get people into your store. If you run an e-commerce business and you want people to buy, your site needs to be set up differently than if it's a brick and mortar store or like a restaurant or a bakery. So think about what you want people to do and make sure to have that clearly articulated as a goal as you start your website planning. Okay, once you decide what you want your customers to do after they've hit your website, you need to try to pick a platform. Now, there are lots of different website systems out there. There's WordPress, there's Squarespace. Those are two of the most popular right now. I've mentioned before that I use a platform called Rainmaker for my website. And if you are going to be looking at e-commerce, you could look at something like Etsy or Shopify if you're going to do a shopping cart. Sometimes you need to do both of those things, but it really just depends on what you want people to do after they hit your site. Now, I've created a diagram for you to use to help you get to the bottom of website information as quickly as possible. Take a look at that. We'll definitely be adding to that diagram as needed, but that diagram is going to help you figure out what system you want to use based on what you want your customers to do, how much money you have to spend, and how much technical expertise you have, or if you need to hire out that technical expertise to help you get that website up. Now, another question I get about websites a lot is, what about SEO? And SEO is definitely a big, hairy topic of conversation, and it can also be a time-consuming activity. But it is important, and we do need to briefly talk about it right now. Now, if you're on WordPress, there is a plugin I recommend, and this is how I learned SEO. The plugin is called All-in-One SEO, and it's by a company called Yoast, Yoast. So you can go to yoast.com, and we'll post a link to an article they wrote about SEO. Now, whether you have a WordPress website or a Squarespace website, I would recommend reading through that article. It's a pretty thick read, but it does give you the basics in the most dialed down way I have found. So it will give you the basic understanding you need to get started on your SEO. Now, depending on what type of website you run, whether it's a Shopify site or a Squarespace site, what you do and how you actually implement those SEO strategies is going to be different for everybody. But it's still important that you understand the basics. Now, there are 3 things that you need to know about SEO, and this is as boiled down as I can possibly make this. These 3 things are, number 1, technical. So SEO involves a certain amount of making sure that you have the right meta descriptions set up in your website. And I know that's a big, long word, but basically it just means that every page on your website has a sentence written about it that describes what's on that page. If you have WordPress, there is the all-in-one SEO plugin that will help you do this. SEO meta description activities are built into things like Rainmaker. There are apps for Shopify to help you do this. And getting the right words on each page of your website in the meta description is one of the most important things you can do. And there's some other things that you can do involving technical details. And in the final module, we will give you a checklist of all of these things if you really want to take a deep dive into the technical aspect of things. But right now, if you're just starting out on SEO, I would highly encourage you to get in the habit of writing a meta description every time you write a post. So that's SEO thing number one. SEO thing number two is social media. So that's simply about letting people know that you exist and your website exists. Now you can hire people to run your social media, but they need to be driving traffic back to your website. There are lots of different ways to do this, and again, we'll give you that deep dive list in the final module so that you can go into that if you want to. But just for surface level and SEO 101, one thing that you can be doing on a daily basis is sharing some kind of content or link from your website on social media. The third thing that is important to SEO is writing. And I can't stress this enough. You may not feel like a writer. You can actually hire writers to write for you if you don't want to generate this content yourself. Sometimes I get exhausted and it's hard for me to write and come up with things to say. So hiring writers is definitely something that I recommend you looking into. Or for those of you who are good freelancers, it might be a service that you're interested in offering. But because you have to have traffic to drive people back to your website, you have to have a place for them to land. And that place that they land needs to have words and information on it so that Google can find you and send them back to you. So those are the three most important factors of SEO: the technical meta descriptions, being involved in social media, and writing. Now, there's a fourth factor that is also extremely important, and I don't see creative entrepreneurs using this like they should. And that's the concept of guest posting. So when Google is ranking your site, they look at how many links go to your site. And the more people you can get to link to your site, the higher your site ranks. And so a great way to build your brand and expand your audience is simply by finding out who accept guest posts on their blog, seeing to it that they have content that relates to your audience, and then sharing articles with them. Some people have requirements about how many links can be included back to a site on a guest post, but this is something that I would really like to encourage the creative community to get better about, is writing guest posts for each other and cross-posting, because that's going to help your SEO value a lot. So also on the subject of websites, do you need to learn code? I would say that having a basic understanding of code is going to help you. I have a basic understanding of HTML and CSS, and I've learned that simply by Googling stuff whenever I need it. So I think you can get pretty far without having to know any code for a website. As your business grows, you might need to hire a developer, but Squarespace is so user-friendly, it's meant to be drag and drop, and right now there are a lot of designers, not developers, but really good designers that are using Squarespace to help their clients build a website. So that's a lesser expensive option than hiring a developer for building your website as well. The last thing I would like to tell you to do for your website is I'd like to encourage you to use Google Apps instead of Gmail for your email address. So that is a tool and a system that you can set up through Google. The second thing is I'd like to see you set up Google Webmaster for your website, and you can sign up through Google and do that as well. And then the last thing is sign up for a Google Analytics account. All of those accounts are going to require you to place a small piece of code on your website, and you might need a developer to help you do that. But websites like Squarespace are getting really good about helping people get those things set up and cross-referenced without using any code at all. So that might be an option for those of you as well. To basically summarize the systems about websites, there's so many ways to do things, and there's not really a right or a wrong way to do things. You need to do what's best for you, and what's best for you is going to be dependent on how much time you can spend on it, how much money you can invest in the project, what your level of technical expertise is, and what you want your clients to do when they land on your website. So hopefully some of this information that we've provided will get you further on making that decision and help you make an informed decision about what's best for you.